at it again with a brand new episode of Anu Pale. I want to welcome everyone who's a returning viewer, and our new viewers, just to let you know what's going on. It's a discussion. I'm a Haitian American who returned back to the country to do business, and I want to encourage other folks, Haitian American, Canadian, wherever you're from, to come to Haiti to invest, to do business. And I break it down to you in a real, non-flowery, this is what you gotta do to get it done sort of method, mentality. And, I'm not hiding nothing from you. I'm not hiding nothing from you. I'm not working for the government. I'm not telling you Haiti's ready for business and yet when you actually come here, you see something else. I'm telling you, Haiti is available for business. There's a lot of opportunity to be made here, but there's some stuff you have to do. There's a process on top of the process that needs to be done. And so, I think that's gonna be my usual spiel anyways every time to start off. So again, welcome, and let's talk. Today's episode is particularly a big one because after 2 years, I finally gotten my patent. What does that mean? Your business patent, specifically, is your official documentation for your business, right? It's the official thing that says, hey, you're an actual entity in this country doing business and of course liable for the taxes and et cetera, but it's the official thing that states, your entity, your thing exists, particularly in the eyes of the government and the state. Finally got it. Yes, I didn't stutter. I didn't exaggerate. It took 2 years. Here it is, guys. Here it is. There's the official little envelope. Here it is. This little piece of paper right here. This little piece of paper right here. It took 2.5 years to get it. Whew! Of course, you folks out there say, man, why? Why? Too many levels of why. Why did it take so long, and why? Why endure something like this process to begin with? That's the secondary question to the bigger picture. Why I think you watched the introduction episode. I think I talked a little bit about that, but the lower level why of why it took so long. Whew, this is why we have this episode. We're gonna talk about it. Okay, and then at the end of this episode, I'm gonna leave you guys with some tangible action I did do for you to replicate them. All right. So when it comes to the patent, here is the legal process. And in those episodes I shared on Seejeanty probably last year, we actually provided a Google Drive, which is still open, by the way, it's still available. Google Drive with some of the legal processes of how you get your business registered, not only for Seejeanty anonyme, which is the SA, which is like a corporation, but also for businesses like partnerships and businesses like entreprise privée, which is just basically a private enterprise, but it's akin to a sole proprietorship, where again you yourself hold direct connection with the legal liability of the business and your assets and everything. And so, I did provide that documentation. So what this is, particularly what I decided to register as, for simplicity and cost, was a entreprise privée, which is in effect sole proprietorship, right? And for the cost and for the expediency, and also that for access to a bank account, etc., I wanted to do it that way. That's why I recommend anyone who's coming to the country to first do an entreprise privée just to get started, and so just you have a piece of paper in your hand. Right? And then just while you're working on your much larger corporation, society, anonyme, right? And so 2 years. So the process legally is for you to go to the MCE, which is the Minister of Commerce and Industry. And the process there is really to trademark your name, to register your name and ensure that the name doesn't already exist in the country. In effect, you trademark it. Here's the problem. So wouldn't it make sense, given that your job, your role is to ensure that a name doesn't exist, wouldn't it make sense to have a database that all you have to do is just start doing a keyword search for a name and then see if this is already there or not? Wouldn't that make the most sense? That's not how it works in Haiti. There was an attempt at a database. Last I heard, the one database administrator that was running the whole thing, he went to France. No, I didn't find him. I'm not kidding. I'm not making this up. This is hand to God. What I've heard, not only from a few different sources I have that are well connected to the MC. That's what happened. So the database, as far as I'm concerned, as far as I understand, doesn't function. All right. So it's a very manual process where they look through books that were compiled. Obviously, I think wherever you go, the specific branch will be most accurate for the businesses they register. But also, they have very outdated lists from other MCs across the country, which might be as old as 5 to 10 years old. So in effect, all they end up doing when you go to the MC to register your business name, in effect, which is what their purpose is, they just kind of look at it and say, well, this name sounds pretty common. This name sounds as if it probably exists. This is what happens, guys. This is hand to good. This is what happened, right? And they said, okay, well, this name sounds pretty common, and it had me change my name from what I wanted it to be to ultimately what it ended up being, legally speaking. So, but at the very least, we can say that the MCE, despite its operational deficiencies, is from every account probably one of the few least corrupt departments in the country. There was no request for any cash over the table, under the table. It was pretty straightforward, minus the back and forth about the legal name and the inefficiencies of the process. It was pretty in and out. So the next step, once you have your MC documentation that basically says, hey, this person is the business, this is who owns it, owns the name, and then if it's a partnership, it's a little different. Basically, it gives you a breakdown of who the ownership rights are. But partnership basically give you the breakdown. Partnership paper give you a breakdown of who owns how much percentage of the company. At least for those two simpler cases, the society under name, it's a much larger process, which we'll get into in a future video. I promise and assure you. And then the next part is to actually go to the DGE and officially register your business with in effect tax ID, and so you can operate, have a bank account, etc. So this is a real account of what happened the very first time I went to the DGE, right? I went to the DGE in Pitchell, and yeah, I'm naming names. And when I went there, I walked in, I knew this was probably the most naive possible thing you could do. But you know what, I said, you know what, let me go in there and just take a look and see what happens. So I went in and talked to, there was a guy at the front desk, and I was asked for directions where I need to go to get my patent registered. Okay. And showed it, first off, I actually had two things I was trying to register. I had a partnership and also my private enterprise patent. That was two patents. Second patent, first patent I showed the partnership. I showed it to him. Yeah, he didn't give too, he wasn't too interested. Kind of looked at it. Do you have this? I said, yeah. Do you have that? Yeah. And then and then finally he actually asked for my partner to be there. Like, oh, your business partner needs to be here. It's partnerships. You both guys have to be here. I'm like, oh, okay, well, okay. And then I showed him mine, the actual, small business, private business one. His eyes lit up. Oh, okay. He looked at it and immediately got up, took me to the side hallway, pulled out his wallet, showed me his little badge, the GE badge, just to show me, who exactly he was, and said, "Listen, look, here's what I can do for you, right? Because you have to take this to the back, and again, we're talking the side hallway, okay? listen, this is who I am. I'm an honorable guy. In career, I always say this, by the way. And listen, here's what we can do. We can, for, I don't know, how much money you got? 15,000, 25,000 good. Listen, I can have this back in your hand in 2 days. By the way, I haven't mentioned this yet. I know that the price for a patent legally is about 5,000 good. 5,000 legally. So much so that if I were to pull the receipts, I have receipts here, but actually what was put on the books of DG officially, was recognized on the books, it was 5,000, and there was another smaller administrative fee of about 1,000 good. So altogether, the full price was about 6,000 good, officially recognized by the DG. I didn't pay 6,000 good when it was all said and done. I didn't pay that, right? I paid something else, okay? And we'll leave it there. Right? So, but this fella was talking about 15 to 25,000 good. Didn't know him from Jack or Jill, and here he was in the tax office, asking me for money beyond what was legally required to produce this. So without much hesitation, I said no. I walked out of the DGA and I said, man, well, I can't do that. I can't just walk in because right blatantly in front of everybody, I was, asked for money that was well beyond what I should have paid. So, okay, well, who do I know? So I called everyone I know, and every avenue that people I knew came back with a price. One was 100,000, another one was 80,000 good, 50,000 good. Again, by the way, these prices, so just to make sure my American users or English-speaking users are keeping track here, the legal price is 5,000 good, which is about roughly about $80 to register officially. 5,000 good. Let me do the math real quick for you guys. About $70. It's about $70, right? And so when you have folks quoting you 100,000 good for something that's legally costs $70, they're basically trying to get $1,000 out of you for something that's supposed to legally cost $70, right? And so, every single place you go, you get a different price. Now, one of the things they may ask you to do, I think when you follow the process, you have to actually go and use an accountant and have the accountant then certify your expenses, your initial expenses, and what you say you're using to start your business. Because they know that they are technically the legal channel of source to be able to properly get your patent, they charge an exorbitant amount for the certification of your initial finances, right? In the sums of, again, about 100,000 good, which is about $1,000. And I know this is a price that folks who are going the proper way, right, as part of the process. There should be regulation, you would think, that says, hey, this is what the price is, and you register, and then perhaps maybe the following year around tax time, use an accountant, certified accountant, right? So finally, you asked a couple of different folks, and ultimately, I found a quote that made sense, right? That was higher than this, but at the very least, the folks who was providing it gave me assurances of who this person was. Because one of the bigger concerns when you're dealing with these folks is that your money's you're gonna pay your money, but you never see the person again. That person is gone, right? And you can't really do anything. So this is why it's so important that you have to go through through contacts that you know, that you trust, that you can, if things are happening, you can go back to the contact, and that contact can handle it, right? And so that's what happened. Now, the whole process took 2 years, because the very first year when I tried to register and I was seeing what the costs were, again, getting quotes of $500, $1,000 in dollars, and I was bootstrapping my business, day to day. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs can attest to that. And there was no way I was going to pay it, especially given that you don't really need to. You're legally allowed to operate in the country for 2 years, whatever enterprise that you're in, before you're really been required to register. So I kind of went underneath that umbrella. And then about a year later, once I was in a position where, okay, well, I really do need access to my bank account, and really needed some things that can only be facilitated by the business patent, particularly say if you're doing business with the government, if you're doing business with an NGO, you need a proper patent to say that you're a registered entity in the country. And so that's when I decided, okay, let me try to do it. And even then, it took about 3 months or so, again, going back and forth to different places, different avenues, waiting for contacts to do their research and do their legwork, and then it comes back at a price that was way too high. And so, it took, when the dust settled, it took 2 years, 2 years to finally get my patent. And it's a bittersweet moment, because I know that it shouldn't have been that way. I know that a lot of people who probably are watching, I wouldn't have paid. Nothing. I'd pay whatever the legal price was. But understand that one of the things that the government does in every aspect of interacting with them is they make the going through the legal channel extremely time consuming and extremely document and nuance heavy, because they want you to be discouraged not to go the legal way. They want you to then to look at the entire pathway of what it takes to do it the right way and proper way, and say, I'm just going to pay somebody on the other side and folks get their money. And so that is a reality of Haiti that not too many folks talk about, except side whispers. I'm talking about it, because you guys need to know what it really takes. And so here's some concrete steps in terms of when you're actually trying to register, right? And there's one way you can go, which is use an actual attorney and lawyer, but just know that the costs are going to be much higher than even the $1,000 I was complaining about. Right? The alternative way is to try to do it the legal way, the legal proper way, and when you do, understand that that pathway is also going to be very expensive, because the proper way involves steps that folks have interjected high price points in. For example, the requirement of an accountant, right? And accountants knowing that they're a requirement and then just taxing an incredibly high amount on that, especially when they know you're coming from outside, right? There's a final way to do it, which is then, and what I would advise everyone to do in the reality of things, ask as many folks who they know who could potentially help you get this particular item, right? And of course, make sure the first person you ask is someone that you're relatively close with, you see day to day. If things go sour, you can at least hound them, or at least make them feel very uncomfortable until they give you a resolution that is acceptable, right? And then they'll go to someone they know and get it done for you. And that's really what I wanted to share. I wanted to share, what it really took to get registered in the country. I feel very proud that I'm registered, because that means I can start paying taxes. I feel that's an obligation, right? that as I'm moving the country and making revenue, I certainly want to add to the pool of the tax revenue for the country, because it's going to come a day where corruption is a lot less in the country, and the country is much more dependent upon its own revenue to subsist rather than international aid, and it's going to be folks like us who are contributing a large amount to the government's revenue that ultimately will have a say and hopefully also move the country in a better direction to actually be more focused on facilitating the business environment, facilitating the people who are trying to make positive changes, lasting changes, and so the improvement can continue to go. So, anyways, that's the episode for today. I want we'll probably have a follow up based off of some of the questions I'm getting in the comments, and so do comment, do let me know what you guys want me to expand upon. And again, don't let this necessarily discourage you. Just understand that there's, in any business environment, there's obstacles that have to be overcome, and this is just one more obstacle to have to cross, right? So until next time, guys, subscribe, and I'll chat to you later. Yeah.